Hello, everybody. How are y'all doing today on this fine, whatever the day of the week it is here? Welcome to a very special episode of That Surprise Witness TV, where I will be interviewing one of Bam Margera's personal friends. Now, the other day I'm on the internet, definitely not minding my own business, and this guy reaches out to me calling himself Vinny Beedle. And he tells me that he knows Bam personally and that he was with him just one day before the setup. If you've been watching my channel, you know what the setup is. It was the fateful day on September 26th, 2021 in Pinellas County, Clearwater Beach, I believe. No, where were they? I don't know, wherever they were, the Don Caesar Hotel. And he was clearly set up. The Pinellas County Sheriff's Department was there, Aunt Missy, Melissa Dompierre was there, all of that. Okay. So basically, this guy, Vinny, he wants to tell his story. He wants to tell what his experience was with Bam leading up to the infamous Dr. Phil show. So essentially what this first episode is going to be is just me kind of trying to figure out who Vinny is and how he knows Bam and, basically why should we even listen to this guy, essentially. But Vinny definitely has a reputation that surrounds him, and some of it's he has fans, some of it's good, some of it's not necessarily the best. And I don't really want to get into Vinny Beedle's reputation here. I have not set out to independently verify anything Vinny has said, but I did want to just leave it open to you guys, the public record, let y'all see it and make your own decisions here, because I was really thinking about it. I'm like, who am I to sit here and decide what y'all hear and what you don't hear from what Vinny had to say? Here it is in its entirety, and you be the judge. Leave it in the comments below if you agree, disagree. But one thing I do want to say is Vinny Beedle is the only person who has personal knowledge of Bam Margera and Brandon Novak and Steve-O and all of these people who has been willing to have the spine to step up and say, you know what, BJ, I have something to add. So I do want to, for that, say thank you to Vinny. Hopefully, Vinny will be the first domino in a line of dominoes that will begin to fall, that will help us to restore Bam Margera's human rights, civil rights, constitutional rights, and his civil liberties. So without further ado, here is the first 2 hours of the 4-hour interview that I did with Vinny Beedle. This would have been about 2 days ago. So in the meantime, Brandon Novak has blocked me on Instagram. So if you are watching this, and also Steve-O, if you are watching this, unblock me. It's very childish. I see what y'all post anyway, and now it just looks silly. So anyway, without further ado, here is going to be, abruptly entering into my interview with Vinny Beedle. Leave your comments below. Part 2 will be coming out in the next couple weeks. Love you, mean it, facts, and defamation. Okay, bye. There's like some stuff that you want to tell me. I want to hear it. And from what I understand, you actually have firsthand knowledge of, Bam Margera. What's going on? Who are you? How do you know Bam? Whatever else you want to say. And we'll just kind of clip it together so that it makes sense.
Hi, everybody. How you guys doing? My name is Vinny Beedle. I am a stand-up comedian and live show producer. I have been doing that for a very long time. I started when I was 17 years old. I just turned 31 in April this month.
Happy
And
birthday.
thank you. And how I met Bam Margera is a funny story. For those of you who are listening that do know who Bam is from Jackass and Viva La Bam, obviously at this point now you've done enough content so that the people listening to this know who he is.
Yeah, they know now.
They don't know who I am, though. I'm a comedian that had been working for, once I hit the 10-year mark in the comedy business, I started to work with a lot of celebrities, and I started to work with celebrities that were losing control in their life, because I'm a third-party comedian that throws his own shows. When the agents weren't giving people work or managers weren't giving people work, they'd find their way to me somehow. The word would spread, hey, Vinny will put you on a show. And I've worked with some pretty big names, and Bam was kind of the end of the run for that. Actually, a couple comedian friends of mine went to one of Bam's big parties at his castle house.
Okay.
And they told me, it was in December of 2018. They told me they were going to a huge open party that thousands of people were going to at Bam Margera's house. And I was currently working on the road with a comedian named Artie Lang. He's a famous comedian from the Howard Stern show. He's been in films like Elf and beer league and all kinds of things like that. And I was working with Artie, which was a rough thing for me at the time because Artie was had addictions and was going through court cases in between our tour. So that was a bit of a power struggle, just working around his management team and his family to try to make things happen for him. So I could not go to the band party, but I did send a couple people that I knew, and they had business cards of mine from events that I do. So if a comedian knows nothing about throwing a show or how to do anything for Bam, Bam's not even a comedian, but how to do anything for him, what they will do is they'll say, hey, look, this guy Vinny does this, give him a call, and then maybe he could still be a part of it. So this comedian, his name is Mike, and he's from New Jersey. I'm from Connecticut originally, and Bam's in Westchester, Pennsylvania. So we're all within like a 5-hour drive of each other. Mike went to the party. Now, Mike is the kind of kid who has been he's in his 30s, and he's like he's done wrestling, he's a comedian, he's done FX makeup, he's done all these different things in his life. And so he understands, like, if you want to meet a celebrity, you got to be somewhere very, very early. He's done these kinds of events and things for years. So he went to Bam's party like a day before. And where there was like maybe 3,000 people at this party, there was a couple hundred people ahead of time there helping set up, trying to like get in with Bam and whoever needed help with anything. That's kind of how like things go at Bam's house. Bam has a big property called Castle Bam. I don't know how much you've covered the castle. It's
Not
just
much.
Bam's Castle is a famous like house that's in Westchester, Pennsylvania, that's like on Google Maps. It was in the show Viva La Bam, and I don't know how much they featured it through Jackass. I watched the stuff, but I was a kid, so I don't really I haven't rewatched much of it. So it was in that world somewhere. And he has a big property and with tons of land and a skate park
So when you
outdoors.
say that the people like would come there early to get in with Bam and see if he needed help with anything, or what do you mean exactly? Like help how? Because we see this word help tossed around all kinds of different ways lately.
Right. I'm kind of speaking in present terms of the time I'm talking about. So I will explain how I learned about celebrity enabling and even how I was a part of it a
Okay.
bit, and that kind of is a whole discussion of its own. But what I'm talking about is more people who are scheduled to come and pay for the event, but think if they show up early, they might be able to come in because they need a helping hand. Maybe they don't have a
Ah,
whole crew ready to throw this party, and they're like, hey, kid, come help me do this. And that is exactly how it is around Bam's camp. You have like 5 people helping run something actually, and then a bunch of people just show up and you start telling them, you want to be a part of this? You want to hang out with us? You need to do this. You need to go take the trash out. You need to go get beer. You need to go get paint for the driveway. Whatever it is,
that's interesting.
those are the things that need to be taken care of, and they will. And that's kind of how people with money survive without even using their own money, is they just have people doing things for them. So my friend Mike went early, and supposedly he had help, like he told me, setting up tables and things like that. And he ended up in the house with them. And at one point he said he's standing around like a kitchen counter with like Bam's manager, his mom, his wife, and then like this guy Mike. It's like an open mic comedian that I sent to this place with my business card. Is all of a sudden feet within them. And he starts pitching Bam this idea, but hey, Bam, you could do my show and open for me. And Bam's like, worth, at the time, $50 million, to be honest with you. And, he's like, what? Like, what are you even saying? And so they're like, get this kid out of here, get him out of here. And the manager starts getting him out of there. And at last ditch effort, Mike didn't want to get me involved, but pulled the card out last ditch effort and was like, my friend Vinny really does throw events, like he works with celebrities, give him a call, and like gave him the card. Well, 3 weeks later, fast forward, Artie Lang goes to jail. He had a year-long case from before I met him with a heroin charge, and he was on tour with me and was not doing it anymore. And that's a thing that, I at least tell you on this channel, because people may know him as well. He was not on it anymore, but he was doing cocaine. And when I brought him to court, he peed negative, and they brought him to jail. So all of a sudden, the shows I have tomorrow night, next week, the week after, are all canceled because this guy's, in jail. So I'm on my way home from that. And usually in my career, when things like that happen, something drastically bad happens, out of nowhere, there's just like this amazing miracle happens. And like I get this call or something happens. And then all of a sudden, here we go again. And on that same day, Artie went to jail. I'm driving home from New Jersey. I get a phone call from Bam Margera's manager. Really, he's been with him the last 10 years. And that's the thing a lot of people are
Is this
not.
guy's name Jack?
Yes. I have a weird relationship with Jack. We have been through a lot together. So in business, it's one of those things where we talk a lot, and I do have a lot of love for him, but we have a lot of hate for each other as well.
Okay.
There's a lot of competition in that business when you're working with somebody at that level. And it's not competition that I necessarily wanted, because I believe in more of a cohesive unit working together. Like we all did different jobs. There's no reason to compete. But
Right.
Jack, there is a lot to talk about with Jack. But he's not a bad guy. He's just somebody that shouldn't be in the role he was in at the time. But he had the experience for it, but Bam is a different animal. And I think that we will definitely get into that. So I get a call from Jack, and Jack explains to me that they have a show going on in Detroit at this venue called The Shelter, which is where they based the Eminem movie 8 Mile after. But really, it's a nice venue below a theater called St. Andrews Hall. And downstairs, they sold 400 tickets to see Bam Margera live, except Bam Margera has never performed live. People see the name and they bought the tickets, but Bam is a professional skateboarder turned TV star, and so he never had like a live audience to perform in front of.
Right.
He did, he got thrown a shopping carriage out down a hill or some shit, Right. So they gave me a call. I guess, oh, this guy Vinny does events. Let's see what he has to think about it. And I've been a part of a lot of events in my career and a lot of bad ones. And I said, well, what's the worst that can happen? So they offered me some money, and that's kind of when the money train started, because they didn't tell me how much money they'd really be paying me. But I said, okay, it's just a celebrity. This has to be a high paying gig, 400 people, and well, let's see what happens. So I ended up renting a vehicle to take up there. And I did bring the kid Mike with me, and that was my way to kind of pay him back to get me in with them.
Mm-hmm.
And my wife drove us, and we went from Connecticut up to Detroit. And Bam, when I first got there, I met him at a Comic-Con event that ran during the day. He did a lot of Comic-Cons.
Okay.
And he did Comic-Cons after this one, as a matter of fact. Jack is a Comic-Con booking agent. So when Jack's expertise is to book people through Comic-Cons, it's a good little living. And Bam really just had to sit there and sign autographs and take pictures with his fans, which I thought was very good for him. But this is where the problem came in. Jack is the kind of guy that would do anything Bam asked him to do, literally.
Okay.
And so there are a lot of things. Now, I wouldn't say he wouldn't somebody or do something very aggressive. He wouldn't do anything like, if he doesn't think it's harming Bam, he will do it for Bam. And what I was noticing early on was Bam would be drunk at events. Like later that night, I showed up to the venue where St. Andrews Hall, we were doing the show, and Bam had already been drinking. When I met Bam, I walked up to his table booth at the Comic-Con earlier that day. I introduced myself and said, hi, I'm Vinny. I'm the comedian that's working with you tonight. Hey, how you doing? He's very nice. And then he went into the green room for a break, and they said, you can go into the green room and have like a longer discussion with Bam. So that's where I went in there and took our first photo together, talked a little bit about what the show even was, and he didn't have any idea. So they asked me to go down to the venue early for the show that night, where there was 400 people waiting.
So this is where, just so I understand, I'm taking notes.
Yes.
Bam and you met in early 2019 for the first time at a Comic-Con event where he was scheduled to perform live at that event, but it was
afterwards. There was 2 events. So the Comic-Con is a place you just sit at a table and do autographs and photos. Mm-hmm. Later that night, they had a separate event set up downtown Detroit at this place, St. Andrews Hall.
So it wasn't necessarily related to the Comic-Con event.
No, but it was because everybody that comes to take a picture, it's like, hey, there's still tickets available. Come to our show tonight. And then you get extra people.
No one really knew what Bam was even going to do. He was just going to be there.
That's why I got brought in. And that's the interesting thing.
And so when you were first meeting Bam, you're like, hey, bro, hey, dude, hey, what's up? Let's talk about your show tonight.
Yeah, there wasn't much.
So unprepared. It was
there wasn't much of a discussion for that. And I got in line myself with my wife to meet him. It wasn't like anybody, like Jack's running around, and I'm like, oh, let me just get in line and meet him. I don't have to pay for let me just get in line and say, hey, look, I'm working with you tonight. You might want to meet me first.
Yes. Okay.
So he was really sober at this first event when I met him, and so I'm like, oh shit, this is gonna pop off. There's people everywhere. This is gonna be a big thing. So I go down to the venue, and as a matter of fact, Bam went straight to the venue afterwards, and he started to drink. And from my understanding at that point, Bam was like a grown man and getting his own alcohol. But I learned halfway through the night that it was Jack that would go and get him a vodka to kind of keep him still. Like that was the thing that I noticed, was that, it was like, here, Bam, here's a vodka, just sip on it or whatever. And then you're doing that all night, and you get by the end of the night. I've been around Bam drinking many, many times and had very cohesive conversations with him. He can survive. He is a thriving addict. If I was around Bam 90% of the time, he was good, and 10% of the time it was pure chaos. Right. And that is when the damage really gets done in that 10%. When I got to the event, he was really heavily drinking at that point. I could smell it on him, and he's slurring words, but he wasn't like super yet. He was just like really nervous about the event. Didn't even want to go out there. Usually when he did do live events with thousands of people, he's got a band with him. They're rocking out, and you know what I mean? Now he's got this thing where it's like you're with a comedian. And
What was he really supposed to do? I'm just confused as to what the plan.
again, this is something that, for me, I'm an improv kind of person. And I'm also like looking at this like this is an opportunity for me. So I don't know what they were planning, but what
Yeah.
I was thinking on the way there is I brought the kid Mike with me, who wasn't a very good comedian, but he's the guy who got me connected with him. I'm going to put him on stage, and hopefully he could get some laughs. Again, I'm shooting from my hip here. And then
Yeah.
if he doesn't, I know I'm funny enough to get this crowd really like going, I would think. At the time, I'm like, yeah, if they're there for a comedy show, they didn't really specify what it was at the time, just a show, like a show with Bam, and we have comedians there. And so people were to assume it was a comedy event. But once Bam didn't really know what to do. So so I basically improvised and said, he's like, I don't want to go out there. And I was like, well, are you worth the amount of money that they say you're worth? And he's like, yeah, I got money. I don't have to worry about money. So, okay, well, what are you getting for this event? 10 grand, and refund the people. Go out there, meet them, say, hey, I'm sorry. I don't know what my manager's doing, but I'm not supposed to be here right now.
Yeah,
And,
I don't
and,
really
and,
know what to do.
I
Yeah.
don't know what to do. And you could walk out the back door afterwards. And he's like, he really doesn't want to upset his fans. So I said, okay, well, here's plan B. I'm a stand-up comedian. Mike's a comedian, and I've never seen Mike perform, but we're gonna put him up for about 3 minutes. And if it doesn't go well, I'll take him off. I'll go up for 5 minutes. And if at that point you don't hear any laughter from out there, like your opening act that they who have no idea who I am is just bombing, then maybe at that point this isn't it. I'm not going out there. So just go with off what the crowd's reaction is. So he goes, I like that idea. So they did this intro. I go up on there, and I'm just bantering with the audience, making fun of people in the front, just kind of picking on them and getting some reactions. People are laughing. They're all standing. So it was like an event for music or something, which is horrible. They were outside for 2 hours in the 2-degree weather waiting to get in. And so these
Oh,
people already were super like aggy, and some of them paid over $100. Some of them paid 20. People paid different ticket prices. Guys paying 100 in the back. This guy's paying 20 in the front, like super unorganized. And
yeah, it seems like it, the whole
and I have
production.
film of it as well that I can get. And the reality of what I felt on stage was a very positive reality. Like I was like, my reality, it may not be reality. I have film of it, and I look at it after, and I hate myself. I hate watching my own stuff. But I'm on there, and I made them laugh, and they're laughing. They're laughing enough that Bam was ready to come out. His
Okay.
manager was laughing. The crowd's laughing. I'm only up there for 3 minutes, and I'm kind of cutting to him like, dude, this ain't a comedy show. Bring him out. This is the most I can do. And I've been doing comedy over 10 years. I'd stay up there for an hour if I was killing it. So
Yeah.
I just got to be honest about that. But then Bam comes out, and we had prepared these like questions I was supposed to ask him, but he wrote it in like not Strigoli, but like freaking Scribble at the time. And he had like a list of stuff not to ask him and a list of stuff to ask him, but like they taped it to the floor, and I didn't know which fucking list was which I just started asking him anything I could read down
Yeah,
there.
yeah, yeah.
And I did not refresh myself on Bam Margera stuff coming into this. I didn't watch anything, or I didn't, I'm just
Yeah.
like, hey man, how's it like getting kicked in the balls? You know what I mean? That kind of shit. I'd ask him something, and he'd be like, I don't want to talk about that. So like he was good, but he was drunk. So a lot of people hated me in that set. The whole set's online. It got over like 70,000 views. A lot of people hated me
Okay.
because I would over talk him. It's me and him with a microphone in both of our hands. I'm staying up there with him. And when he falls off or just completely like loses it, I'm trying to say something funny or something to just keep it rolling.
Yeah.
And there were a few moments that he really laughed at me. That was the weird thing, was it wasn't as much about the gig that night, but about what Bam remembered about me and things I was saying. He was laughing at the whole time we were on stage. You would see him laugh at different moments of the set. And then he would kind of get into his own confidence. And he had a few very funny moments. That's when I realized this guy's pretty funny,
He is
like
funny.
I was like, damn, I like this. Like, wow, maybe we could build something off of this, or we definitely could. Look, there's 400 people. We're in Detroit. I'm a promoter. We can go everywhere, So after the gig, he goes back and immediately was like, I fucking love you. I would have never been able to do this without you. He was like, you saved me. I don't know where you pulled that out of your ass, but I love you, dude. Thanks.
So
Okay.
just one more time to confirm, that was the first day that you
It's not
ever
over with.
interacted with
It's
him. You
not
never
over with.
met him before. You
Never
never.
met him. Never met him.
Okay.
This is my first Bam Margera experience, though. This is my first Jackass experience. After the gig, he comes out the front door. People are bombarding him. Autographs. People want to have with him. People want to give him drugs. I was like, shit, I was kind of used to that with people, and his manager wasn't doing really much about it. So I said, dude, let's get the fuck out of here, like, and he's like, okay. So he kind of follows me and my wife, and we're leaving. And as we're leaving, Jack goes, Bam, come here. There's a strip club next door. And he was getting 20 grand to bring Bam to that strip club. And Bam goes, I don't want to go to the strip club, Jack. I want to go back to my hotel. My wife said I'm not supposed to drink, blah, 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 blah. He goes, Jack, Jack's like talking to the owner. The owner's pissed, and he's like, what the fuck, man? You said he was going to come hang out here all night. And so Bam's like, can you take me back to my hotel? And I said, hell yeah, dude, let's go get in the car. So this is funny. Bam goes, I just don't want Jack. Like, it's not that I don't want to be at a strip club all night. It's just that I don't want Jack to make money off of me going to a strip club all night. He's an asshole, like he should have told me first. He should have did this. And then I'm like listening to him. I'm like, all right. So I bring him back to the hotel, and I put him in the room. Like, I get him in his room, and 2 hours later, I get a call from Jack. Now, I hadn't been paid for the gig yet. I get a call from Jack 2 hours later. And he's like, dude, I lost Bam. He got kicked out of the hotel room for playing loud rock music all night, and they threw him out of the hotel. He's by himself in Detroit. I don't know what to do. So I said, dude, it's 2:30 in the morning. It's Detroit. We're on 8 Mile. He's at a strip club somewhere else. That's it. Like, the casino's in Canada across the bridge. He ain't going very far. He's either at a bar somewhere or a strip club. And it was 3 a.m. I'm like, strip club it is. So I went. As soon as I got with Jack, I called the strip club up, and the only one that was open that was left, and they answered the phone like it was 4 p.m. I always tell the story. It's so funny. They're like, hello, strip club speaking. How may I help you? And I'm like, oh, hi, do you have Bam Margera in there? I'm a friend of his. And he's like, oh, the guy from Jackass? Yeah, we do. He's right here. And I'm like, Jesus Christ.
My
so
word.
It's closed, by the way. I go up to the building, fucking middle of 8 Mile, Detroit. They open the door, there's security, and all the strippers are in their sweatpants. They're not like naked anymore, but they're still dancing for Bam because like they're just like off the clock and just trying to entertain him. He gets so crazy as soon as Jack walks in. He throws Jack on the table. He starts punching him in the chest, punching him in the arms, punching him in the nuts. Just the security's holding him down. He's like, you shouldn't have did that. Like, like you ruined my night by trying to make money off me and blah, 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 blah. And I got kicked out of the hotel. And then he looks at me, and he's drunk as fuck. And I'm thinking he's going to punch me in the face or something. You just had that energy. And he just goes, I like you. I like you. And then that was it. So I said, okay, get in the car. We got him in the car. We brought him back to another hotel. And that's when Jack's manager our band's manager just took like all the cash he had and just like started throwing it at me, and he's like, here, man, here, you gotta be with us now. And, you can handle him, and you can convince him to do whatever we're supposed to do, or, and I counted it up, and I spent $1,500 on this trip, and it was like $500. And I was just like, but then at that point, the way I was rolling at that point, which was super scumbag Vinny, before scumbag Vinny became a thing, I was really like been in the business for a long time and really wanted to make it. And, I wasn't doing drugs with him, wasn't giving him no out, wasn't drinking with him or nothing. I was like, what did I really do? I went and, me and my wife went around at 3 a.m., picked him up and brought him back to his room a few times. Like, it wasn't that big of a deal. He could punch me, but I could defend myself. I wasn't afraid of him. So I was like, now I'm kind of invested. I felt invested at that point. I felt invested $1,000 at that point. I spent $1,500 on the trip. I only made $500, and I'm the kind of guy, I'm like, I'm going to work with this dude until I get my money back, And I little did I know at that point, I was getting on a train that was going to go around the whole world, After that, I called Jack a few days later and I said, hey man, that was really fun, right? I saved the day, right? Yeah. So what's up, man? You guys want to do this again or what? Yeah, Bam really likes you. It's all he's talking about is you. But Bam's kind of busy building a big skate ramp at his house. So he had been planning another party already from that big one. And he has this big building on his property, and he built like a $30,000 skate ramp and then didn't like it and tore it all down, and then hired an entire crew to come in from Philly to live at the house. and build an entire skate ramp, $100,000 skate bowl, and he's like,
Yeah.
he's working on that. So what am I supposed to do? Drive to his house? What do you mean drive to his house without them knowing I'm coming? Yeah, man, just drive to his house. Trust me, drive to his house. So I drove to the house like an idiot, 4 hours away. As soon as I got there, there's a freaking gate. I buzz it. It's April, his mom. Hi, I'm Vinny. I'm a comedian. I work with Bam. I guess fans go there every single day trying to get in. So that didn't work. She's like, yeah, right, and hung up, which I understand. I called again. His dad picked up. I explained the situation. I drove 5 hours. I just helped him in Detroit. I'm here. He lets me in. I go in. I walk around. You could pretty much walk in the house like it's a museum. Everything's unlocked. Nobody's around the house. I go down to the skate bowl. Bam's there with about 20 people. And as soon as I walk in, he just stops what he's doing. Everybody stops what they're doing. And he just runs to me, gives me a big hug. He's like, yo, man, we got to get this stuff going again. I told everybody about what we're doing. This is the new thing now. I'm doing tours with comedy. I'm a comedian. We're going to be comedian, just the whole thing. And was excited. And that's when we started to plan things together. And the first series of shows we were supposed to do were going to be in March of 2019. So
Okay.
February, March. And originally we had planned about 10 shows, which he had given an okay to. And I've done a lot of bad business in my life and wasn't doing any kind of contracts with him. I felt as though we went out to lunch that day. I met him at the skate bowl. I had 2 comedians with me. One of them, his name's Rodney Norman. He's very, very well-known comedian. He's in his late 50s now, and he has this big gray beard, very distinguished guy. So, I'm not with kids there. They just had a different vibe about us. So him and his wife went out to lunch with us with about 10 of their friends. And I sat down with me, 2 other comedians I knew. There's like 13 people at this tavern near Bam's house. And my buddy Rodney, the older gentleman I was just telling you about, paid the entire tab in advance, which, he's not a rich guy. I didn't see that coming, but he must have said, this is an opportunity for Vinny to pitch his ideas to Bam about becoming his tour manager and doing this comedy tour with him. So this is what I'm going to do. So I end up pitching the ideas to Bam, and he's intently listening to me, really likes the ideas. And in front of all of his friends, gets super stressed out and starts like shaking and gets up and storms out to go have a cigarette. And as he's out there having a cigarette, I thought, oh my God, what the hell is this guy doing? And his wife looks at me and she goes, give me a second. And Nikki walks outside. She came back in all excited. And she goes, he really, really wants you to work with him. Like, he's going to take whatever deal you want to give him, and he wants to work with you, and he wants you to help run things. And it was a really amazing moment in my career. Here's a guy, even if he's worth 1/10 of what they're saying, I come from nothing, and I convinced the guy who's one of the biggest celebrities in the world. And again, I'm sober. He's sober at this lunch. The only time I had experienced him drinking up until this point was at this event in Detroit, which is understandable because his manager is there giving him the alcohol. So I had chalked it up to Bam won't drink if you don't give it to him, which I was wrong about that. But that's just where I'm at this point. And so I was just super excited. And he goes, can you stay the weekend? And I ended up staying the weekend, put me up in the master suite at the castle, kicked out some people that were in there. I mean, he made people sleep outside. Like there's, 100 people there. They're sleeping outside in tents or RVs or, wherever they can sleep, the pool house outside. And, he's putting me in the master suite and telling everybody to get the fuck out of here. Or he would put me in his house with him on Frank Road, the one they sold. I would stay in his house with him. And that was what was strange is he's got 15 to 30, 40 people. And not just me, anybody I come with is staying in his house with him. So that when he wakes up, I'm there and there was other people there with him as well. And they were good people around him. Everybody that I met around Bam at that time, whether it was a guy that taught him yoga or skaters that came by, fans that really hung out with him for years around Westchester, it was like, this is cool. This is amazing. I need to be here. I started investing everything into being around him because I said, he needs me. I mean, he had 2 large television screens. I'll never forget one of the first moments being with him. He had 2 large flat television screens, and he did his editing at this table, and he had stuff everywhere, and he had no idea how to turn one of the TVs on because he lost the remote. And I said to him, Bam, why don't you just go to CVS and get like a universal remote for like $10 and get this TV working? And he goes, universal remote? He's like, wow, yeah, CVS. Can you go do that? And it wasn't that nobody was able to do that, but I just feel like everybody around him was so occupied on other things that nobody was actually handling his actual day-to-day things he needed done. I can't tell you how many times we were out somewhere and I'm hungry and I'm about to go back to the castle and I'm like, dude, I'm going to Wawa. You want a sandwich? Like, I'm fat, dude. I got to eat. You want a sandwich? And he would look at me and, you know, there's celebrities around and we're at some bar or something somewhere. He's like, yeah. Can you do that? And he might only, I'd see him take a bite or something every once in a while at home when I was there with him. But I would be like, I felt like, all right, at least he ate something. Cause like, who the fuck is around to help this guy right now? You know,
Yeah.
you know, his wife has got her hands full with a baby, which is hard enough. And being a celebrity's wife, I completely at that point understood like, okay, they need help, but they didn't have anybody that would come around that didn't want to like take full control or leech or do some crazy shit. And they didn't have anybody willing to commit to that. And the ones that did always had ulterior motives. So if the yoga guy had a background in film, he wants to help Bam with the yoga, but also he's got to work on editing with Bam all the time. So there's no time to get Bam fed or get Bam right mentally or get Bam exercising, you know. Interestingly enough, and I have spread my hand out to Brandon Novak many, many times as they continue to look at me as I'm a nobody.
Yeah.
Or nobody in Bam's life as a friend. And we have so much more to cover. You only see people like that popping up when he's doing good, especially if they're benefiting off sobriety, you know? So if you're making money off sobriety and somebody like me, you know, let's fast forward just for a second to where he's at now in Florida. Okay. Because Bam leaves his rehab a while back when we lost our baby to a miscarriage. I told you this off stream. And me and my wife had a miscarriage last year during COVID. And that was the same time right before that Bam had left his rehab facility and went to Orlando. He went to a skater's house. Now, the skater's house, there's three brothers. They're professional skateboarders. They have a skate park in their backyard. The mother, tons of money. They go to Disney all the time. They're great, you know, family, good people, you know, really good people. And not getting fucked up with Bam, not doing anything wrong with Bam, invited me to go and meet Bam there. So I went out just recently to go meet Bam at this place where he told me, you know, he left at his own free will. If he thinks something is his idea, he's going to go with it. So when his family trusts somebody, they tell them, you have to make it seem like it's Bam's idea and he'll do it. That's their way to get Bam to do things. So they explained that to me in the past when I was on their good side. So I understood that. I understood that Lima or whoever is in control of his situation, not an old friend of Bam's. This is somebody that's new to Bam. And whether the husband has a lot of money or she has a product to help with brains or some kind of crazy medicine or just weird home remedy shit, or if it's real medicine, I don't know. But she's doing something with brains on her page I'm looking at. And I say to myself, she went to the family who is exhausted and has had enough, has been through this 50 times and has no more for Bam. Okay. And they say, we don't know where to go for help. They go to Dr. Phil, they go here, and I'm going to go through all that stuff from where we left off. But I just wanted to let you know what my feelings are on this particular situation. I strongly believe that Lima initially approached Bam, his wife, convinced them this is what you need to be doing. Bam bought into it like he buys into anything he thinks is positive. They convince him to go along with it, but then he realizes in the rehab, I'm here on a court order, or am I here because I want to be here? And I think at one point he left there because if you're in a court order, a criminal court order, which you're a lawyer, to be in a rehab facility and you break out, you're going to jail or you're going back to that rehab, or you're probably going to jail, to be honest with you. Okay. I've been on the other side of legal things. I would guess you might go to jail if you're a regular person. Bam left and went to the skater's house. And let me tell you something, nothing happened. I asked him, are you in trouble? I don't know. So we hung out that night and I told him about my wife being pregnant, and he met my wife and daughter for the first time that night. You see, me and Bam had filmed a video months prior at a YouTuber's house named Danny Duncan. Danny's a famous YouTuber with 4 or 5 million subscribers. Danny had Bam in California when Bam was in San Diego. He brought him to Florida. Okay. Danny had him in San Diego when Bam was living out there. Danny had him, they started filming. Bam's manager's not around at this point. Bam's got no handlers at this point. So Danny's team got him. They promised him money. That didn't happen. They promised all this stuff. But because he's famous and he does the kind of shit Bam does, Bam jumps on the wagon. They start filming. They're doing this and that. He tells him about me. We do need to back up and explain a little bit more how I come into the Danny Duncan situation. But with Danny and what they were doing there, I seen Bam. I went and filmed with Bam. I really do want to talk about that stuff in order. But when I went and filmed with Bam, he was super fucked up, super drunk. And I realized, no, they were letting him get as drunk as they wanted. But let's go back. Let's go forward, excuse me. When I was at the skater's house and he got out of rehab at this Tranquil Shores place, he was drinking a little bit, sipping on White Claws, very sober, and had assured me, I'm not going to punch you in the head. I'm not going to throw cakes at you. We're not filming it. I want to see your wife and daughter. I want to apologize to them. I want to start fresh. And I really was scared to do that. You know, my wife had only been around him in Detroit, and she never was around him ever again after that first time. And she just didn't feel safe. And now she's pregnant, and I got my daughter. No, you know, I was not with it. He begged me because he was ready to change his life in that moment. When I went and met him, we shot a little pool. We hung out and we talked a lot. And I asked him what he really remembered from everything I haven't told you yet over the last 3 years. And he didn't remember a lot of it. And I'll tell you why. He didn't remember a lot of it. And what I was reminding him of, he would laugh and start to remember things. But the things he did remember were the story. We, going back to 2019, we really do have to kind of take a step back here because it was such an intricate part, what we were about to walk up and talk about. I know I might sound a little manic, but I'm remembering things as I go as well. And in March of 2019, I'm glad I have timelines because the shows kind of timestamp it when you have the flyers and stuff like that. In March of 2019, we had a 10-show tour book that they ended up dwindling down to just a few shows. We started off by doing a show in Yonkers, New York. Yonkers, New York was a show that we did in front of just 40 or 50 people. We had a 3-day run. We were going to do Yonkers, New York. We were going to do Bridgeport, Connecticut, where I'm from in Connecticut. And we were going to go to New York City. Bridgeport, Connecticut, where I'm from, was at a theater with 200 people and it completely sold out.
Okay.
The show in Yonkers didn't sell super well. It had about 40 or 50 people. I was a bit nervous about that. So I wanted to follow up the New York City show. We had 2 shows in one night at West Side Comedy Club, and I wanted them sold out. So I asked Instagram about a podcast that would help us sell tickets. There is a famous podcast, and when I say famous, it's very underground podcast, comedy podcast out of New York. 3 comedians. It's called Cumtown. Cumtown, as ridiculous as the name sounds, they have public earnings incomes every month that exceed $100,000 a month now. They get in donations just for this podcast, which just shows you the commitment the fans have to this show. And I didn't know that at first. I asked what podcast me and Bam should go on. Everybody's saying, bring Bam on Cumtown, bring Bam on Cumtown. So I get in touch with the comedians. They say, sure, we can do it. They'll meet us during the day before the show in Yonkers at the comedy club. They'll meet us there and we can do the show. So we get to the club. It's during the day. Bam is sober. His wife is with him. The kid is with him. And Jack is there, the manager. I'm there with another comedian. And the comedians from Cumtown show up and they set it up with only one mic for Bam. And I look at him and I'm like, you know, of course, the only thing I'm getting out of this is exposure. We're doing the tour on stage together. So I want to be on the podcast as well. Okay, whatever. They mic me up. I'm on now.
Jack, so at that point, you hadn't negotiated any type of a contract
with Bam? No. We're just flying by the seat of our pants, you know?
Okay.
Which was foolish of me. But now looking back, everything in sequence over the 3 years prior to that and all the celebrities I worked with, everything was happening every day. And every time I would bring up a contract, I would just hear a lot of things about how Bam would just get taken advantage of by other people constantly and legally. They just want, you know, it was always an excuse or something. So I just started kind of going with the flow. And that is where, as much as, you know, the money I believe I'm owed from this situation, I understand that if it doesn't come, that's on decisions that I've made business wise. Those are things I have to learn from. But I do have a lot of old text messages, emails, agreeing. At one point, we did have a contract later on. It went on and almost went to court. It was a crazy time period. But this stretch of shows Bam actually did do. So we do the Town podcast, which we had no idea how big it was at that point. We do this podcast. Jack at the club while we're doing the show during the day is handing Bam vodka sodas. We're recording a radio show during the day and he's getting them fucked up. And that's when I'm seeing it again. And I'm like, dude, he doesn't need it. He's already agreed to come here, you know? And Jack's not the only one that does shit like that in Bam's life, but you know, Jack has the power at that point to just not do it. And he just did it, you know? And that's such a big part, because as I became more of a public figure, the people that do know about me know they you know, some people originally thought I was an enabler of Bam's, but I'm sitting here seeing people around him very close to him doing this. And I'm thinking to myself, Jesus, you know, like this has been happening. If you look back in the Bam catalog, ever since Ryan Dunn's death, the excuse has been that's why Bam is a drunk, you know? And from what I learned from his family, he has been addicted to alcohol that entire time. And even before that, back to his days touring with the Vil Vallo band and the Heartagram stuff. That's when I started drinking. Bam did not drink in his early years. I started drinking when I was 15. That's why I don't drink now. You know, Bam started drinking in his 20s. This shit's going to end one day. And that makes you want to drink some more. Then your best friend dies, and that makes you want to drink even more. So how many Vinny Beedles have really been around? How many Jacks have been around? You know, there's been more than one wife. So this whole story is not a 3-year tale. It's not a 2-year tale. This is a tale, a tragedy that's been going on for a decade over a man who has been glorified to be and I will quote him on this, glorified to be a jackass, but not jackass enough for jackass, but loved for doing it.
Oh, I thought he was too jackass for jackass.
I think it was, how can I not be, how am I too much of a jackass? Yeah, right. For jackass, whatever the saying is, you know, or the flip side of things, you know, he was a 13-year-old professional skater that met Tony Hawk, became very famous. A lot of people look at him as jackass. This is one of the most famous professional skateboarders with street style transition skating that ever existed. He is the GOAT when it comes to that. That is where his following will stay strongest for life. He is a skater. Okay. And with Bam Margera being that big of a skater at 13 and starting to get that celebrity by 15, driving a red Ferrari from Tony Hawk, right? So you start getting the millions of dollars then. The parents got, and they're very good people, and they got, things are a little easier for them. I'm sure they've always earned an income from themselves, and I know that they do things to make money for themselves. But Bam, obviously the whole family, it's easier, right, when he's making millions of dollars. So we might lighten up on the jackass activities a little bit. Maybe the enabling's been going on since he was 13, 14 years old. And also when you do that, you're not maturing as a man, so that by the time time comes to make decisions as a man, you're not able to do so, which is why the family agreed to have somebody like Lima step in at this point. But they don't need somebody that has an ulterior motive behind the closed doors.
Conflict of interest.
Huge conflict of interest. I have a business that has a product that can help redevelop brains or whatever
that she's using. So what her product is a virtual reality application. So her first victim, Amanda Rabb, it's
okay.
You can use it with Oculus, you can use it with the pre-existing virtual reality headsets. And her first victim, Amanda Rabb, her first conservatee, featured on Soft White Underbelly, another
I see it. Yeah, I know that show.
Channel.
Yeah. Okay.
She took that girl off the streets, took her from Los Angeles in California to Las Vegas, Nevada, where is one of her treatment facilities.
It's a great place to keep recovering addicts, by the way, Vegas.
Right. And the treatment with the virtual reality was to put this woman who they took from Skid Row. She was homeless. She was self-admittedly addicted to crack. She was working as a prostitute worker, and they took this woman off the street. Basically, same thing as Bam. They threatened her. They said, you can go to jail or you can do this conservatorship thing.
But did they say that to Bam? I don't think they did.
Lima has on her website the steps that she uses.
Right.
Step 1 is to give the person a choice: conservatorship or jail.
Right.
Step 2 is called detox, right? So you can figure out what they did with Bam, but that's her playbook.
Right.
So they took this woman, and their treatment for her was to put her in virtual reality Skid Row and put all kinds of alcohol and crack and stuff in virtual reality Skid Row. I mean, and I'm sure you've used virtual reality headsets. It's very, very realistic. This is from Ara's Instagram. This was posted April 11th, 2021, less than a month before Amanda was found dead in this Aura treatment facility. So I want y'all to pay attention to two things from this video. First, I want you to look at how Amanda is responding to this therapy, and then they're going to put you inside the virtual reality on the screen so you can see what she's seeing. I want y'all to see what's in there.
Oh my God! What the fuck?
Oh.
Oh my God! What the fuck?
So it seems like Amanda's very, very stimulated neurologically. Listen, I am not a doctor. I do not know, but you can just use your common sense. She's saying, oh my God, she's cursing, she's exclaiming. And then we have like Lima and someone else sitting here laughing at her from the back. But just let's go inside the world and see what we can see.
Oh! Oh my God!
Amanda.
So now we're inside the virtual reality. And of course, if we had a headset, it would be a lot more, realistic. So this is the triggering environment. They've now put Amanda in a triggering environment in the virtual reality headset. They put her around alcohol. There's this bottle here. Do y'all see that? Do y'all see that right there? Vinny Margera, who was at dinner with Lima from Aura just last night, and Bam Margera. Let's see. Bam and Vinny Margera join forces with Aura to lead a revolution in mental health care. Well, I mean, this was the same month that Lima tagged Bam and Nikki and thanked them for backing her experimental virtual reality treatment program. But now, to this day, right now, looking in 2021 where we are today, Lima has petitioned to put Bam, this man, in a conservatorship in Florida, where I believe he still is right now. And this lady was just having dinner with Lima last night, but I didn't see Bam there. And so, it alters your entire sensory perception. And so they put her in a triggering environment on purpose. And then, Vinny, wouldn't you know it, when you look up, there's video of this. I can send it to you. When you look up on the virtual reality Skid Row, there's a big billboard on the side of a building, and it's Nikki and Bam Margera on a red carpet on this billboard.
That's a good way to hide a sponsorship in this world where the only people that are going to see it are ones that are paying all this money to use it or whatever.
What are billboards for?
Yeah, advertisements. Yeah, but they can't throw a billboard out now because it'll look like a huge conflict of interest. They're basically there are people out there right now that are getting really into doing business in the meta universe, the fake universe. Like, okay, maybe it'll be wrong for me to promote Bam on my t-shirt now, but if I put it in the virtual universe, that's fake, right? That ain't real. No, it's the same goddamn thing. It is. And the biggest part of all of what I remember seeing in 2019, we do the show at this Yonkers place. Bam really did like a more intimate environment with like 40 people. We did this event. I really shined doing stand-up that night. And I remember Nikki really laughing at me, Bam laughing like, holy shit, this kid is a comedian. And when he came on stage, more risky stunts, getting his bare ass on me, doing all this shit to make people laugh and whatever. And it went good. Afterwards, didn't get super drunk, didn't get really, blacked out, didn't do none of that. Went back to the room that night. Next day, woke up. We have a show in Connecticut. This is my home state.
Yeah.
We rented a huge theater. The show is sold out. And everybody that I ever knew growing up is coming to this event.
Oh, boy.
So I drove to freaking Pennsylvania to get them because I didn't trust that Jack was going to bring them on time. So I go out to Pennsylvania and Bam, we have to be in Yonkers that day for this radio show. And it was like, let's say 3.5 hours away. We needed to leave in 10 minutes. So I walk in and this is the funniest shit. Jack goes, I said, Jack, is he ready to go? And he's like, yeah, dude, I just told him a while ago, like he's getting ready right now. We are going, and I was like, okay. So I walk in the kitchen, Bam's sitting there like fucking, I don't even know, eating or playing with his phone or something. I can't remember the exact details, but he was just sitting there with his wife and, hey, Vinny, how you doing, man? I'm like, good, dude. Did Jack tell you that we have to leave like right now? And he's like, oh, what do you mean? I heard the show's at 8:00 tonight. Jack didn't tell me anything about that. And Jack's standing right there, doesn't say anything. And I'm like, dude, are you a fucking idiot, man? Like, and I go, Bam, no, we got to leave
How
now,
long
dude.
has Jack been in the picture?
A long time. I'd say he did an original Jackass tour with more of the Jackass members. So I'd say
Was
10
he
years.
hired by MTV and Paramount?
No, he is somebody that celebrities go to at the end of the road.
I see.
You know,
Okay.
not all of them. There are some people that, you know, you're not a big star. You're just on a TV show and Jack can get you work. I'm talking about big stars. If you're a big star and you end up with Jack, but the thing is, Bam trusts Jack a lot because Jack has made Bam a lot of cash.
Yeah.
These Comic-Con events can make 20, 30, 40 grand. So Bam's like, my parents, you know, a lot of people don't know the conservatorship thing. Bam's parents have been running his money his entire life.
People do know that now because I
Yeah.
released the power of attorney that was signed in 2008.
But there are a lot of hardcore people know that now that are listening to your show, but hardcore fans know that anyway. Even back from the Viva La Bam days, there's footage on the show of Phil being like, he got $1 million in the bank. Bam is okay with that because his dad's only addictions are sandwiches and Elvis memorabilia. So Bam just
Yeah.
told me recently, how much could he take from me? How much Elvis shit could he really buy? You know? So he trusts, of course, they're his parents, you know, but they won't give him money for stupid ventures anymore.
So can we go to the part where in 2019, Bam ends up at Wavelengths with Warren Boyd?
Yeah. So that's where I'm getting at with the show. The show in Connecticut, kick-ass show, amazing. Really awesome show. Bam painted my name on the hood of his mother's car and showed the fans on film. And, you know, for weeks afterwards, everybody around his house and mom's house, who's Vinny Beedle and all this stuff. Really awesome night. Afterwards, he's like, wow, you can really produce an event. He got paid for both nights. We go to the New York show. That night, they go to a hotel on the New York-Connecticut line. And I'm in Connecticut. So finally, after being at the castle for like a week straight, I could go home with my family.
Yeah.
And I drive back to Connecticut, to go home. That was a mistake. See, there were moments where I would say, I don't want to be there 24/7. I know he listens to me. And if I wanted to help him, then that's what I should have been doing. But I'm not his friend at this point. We're really just working together. And I was tired. My wife missed me. I wanted to go home. So I leave them at the hotel. And it was that night, Bam, when I was staying with him at his house, had an Adderall prescription. This Adderall prescription went missing one day when I was at his house on Frank Road in February, early March.
Yeah.
He started freaking out. Where's my Adderall? Where's my Adderall? Where's my Adderall? And then like an hour later, he finds it. And he's like, oh, thank God it wasn't Billy who stole it. You know, it's right here. And I was like, holy shit. You know, that was fucking close call, you know? So
Yeah.
I pick him up the next morning after the Connecticut show. This is the first week of March 6th, 7th, and 8th. We're doing the mixed 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th. We're doing the shows right in that stretch of time in 2019. So we're at the Connecticut show the next day. I pick him up in the morning, and he looks so different. He looks strung out.
Yeah.
It was just him, Nikki, the child, and Jack at this hotel.
Okay.
All night long, he had not slept. He had a huge pint of alcohol in his hands. I rolled the window down. He looked at me and he said, I'm going to give you the worst day of your life. And I went, what? And he was like, I am about to give you the worst day of your life. I'm going to cancel the show tonight and you're going to see what it's like to be with me. And I look at him. And at that point, I kind of, for me, made like $5,000 off the last 2 days. So I didn't need the money as much. I had like $500 in my pocket, $600. I was like, okay, all right. I don't really care. And that's when he's like, oh, okay, you don't care. And he kind of like, then I became his buddy in crime almost. Like, okay, you want to see me go down this road?
Yeah.
Now I'm not going to punch you, but you're going to see me do all this shit. And so I was like, all right, at least, you know, driving, I'm safe, I feel like. And I've agreed to I let him do whatever the fuck he wants to do. I said, dude, you gave me the show of my life in front of my family last night, the show of a lifetime.
Yeah.
So you go ahead and do whatever the fuck you want to do today. You want to cancel New York? I made a call to the club. We got 2 shows tonight. Let's just do one at 10 because Bam doesn't want to fucking do shit. So maybe he'll do the one at 10, maybe not. So we go from 2 shows in New York City, which rumored guests were people like Marky Ramone, John Travolta, Pete Davidson, and MGK. I mean, this show in New York was really going to be amazing. But here, Bam is super fucked. And it wasn't like Detroit, though. It wasn't like Detroit. I knew nothing about methamphetamines at the time, but I knew something was off about him. And it was at that point that Jack had told me later on that him and his wife had been fighting over Bam trying to do meth that night. And I guess that was the fight. And so it was a big fight that kept Bam up all night long. So he's kind of in this mode where I'm scared on this ride to New York as he has a backpack and he's in the front seat taking items from his backpack, staplers, whatever I don't even know what it was, just throwing shit at my feet, trying to get the brakes and the gas to get jammed up while we're on the highway. And I want to kill myself. And it was really fucking wild, you know.
So what do you think was going on that could explain that behavior?
Methamphetamine use.
You think okay.
Okay. So what I've learned about you can turn into a violent, non-human. You know, I've seen him on many times now. And
Okay.
I know when it was happening. So I'm like, this is my first time experiencing it. And those of you who want to, you know, get real in detail of exactly what happened in New York, I did do, I have a podcast, Scamming with Vinny, on YouTube. They can check out, go back. There's a lot that they'll be able to, or we can get into it another time, but there's no sense in going down the road of the fun times I had with Bam. This is really about kind of getting to, this is an investigation show. So you're getting into issues and shit like that. But it was a fun ride. You know, he's flipping people off and ripping up my money and throwing it out the window. And you don't need money anymore. You're with me and all this kind of crazy shit. We get to the hotel. We have a radio show booked with the Anthony Cumia show that he blows off, gets drunk with people at this hotel, gets thrown out of this hotel, fighting with his wife. Wife leaves, wants her to come back, all this crazy shit. Get to the club. Once we get to the club, he shows up 3 hours early to the show and sees nobody there, starts raging at me. And I didn't even know this. He ruined the hotel room that was in my name already. I didn't even know that until later on. Raging at me, ruining the club, cancels the show. And that's when he beats up Jack on TMZ. I don't know if you ever seen the video where he goes, "Get my Range Rover, get my goddamn Range Rover." It's got like 500,000 views. He's in the club in New York City, raging at Jack because I ran the fuck out of there.
Is that the one where he's like, if Nikki doesn't have a new outfit?
If Nikki doesn't have a new outfit. And then my face like, you know, because I'm driving in New York City on the highway doing like 80 and I'm dealing with it.
I'm not envious of you having to deal with people in that
takes
state.
out a thing of glitter and just dumps it all over my head. And, you know, glitter, I'm wearing glitter for the next week, you know, and I'm like, Jesus, this guy's out of control, you know.
I would have loved it.
It was because I was kind of like, okay, he is jackass. So you would kind of put that in your brain for a little while, and you were like, oh, this is like what it's like, I guess.
But I don't think I would, because it would be very odd to me. Like I was raised by addicts. So like when people start behaving erratically like that, I remove myself because I know what's going on and I know that I'm not going to be able to, but I'm also like 5'3", 115 pounds. If I could hold my own, I might be like, yeah, let's go. But like, if he's throwing shit, I'm going to be harmed. Like,
yeah. And I have to admit, there was a lot of greed at play there in my mind, you know, was
thinking you were going to kind of get like a come up or whatever off of it in some way.
More than a come up. I mean, shit, if I can keep him in somewhat of some kind of check for the next year, we're going to make $1 million. You know, we're selling that many tickets. We're selling tickets for $100.
Like people want to, like, if you could just get him a little skit, like, even, you know, anything, you would be able to make money if you could keep him off of the drugs.
I had been a comedian for 10 years, done a lot of great shows, performed all over the place, made some money, worked with other celebrities. This was different for me. It was just different, you know, it was just different.
You were like really in it.
I was in it. I was totally in it, you know, and I didn't know yet. On the way to New York, I looked at a YouTube video, and because I was unknown and on that Come Town podcast, there was a video out there called the Vinny Beedle, the worst guest ever, because I kept interrupting or was talking and they wanted to hear bam, 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 bam. And here I am talking, and it got like 50,000 views in a day. And I just got so depressed, you know, and I just remember Bam looking at me and he's like, I am not a comedian. I am a reality television star. He said, so where there's drama, there's success. So in his eyes, he felt like whether I'm doing good, bad, and different, as long as they're watching, I'm a part of something. So lean into this. Lean into this
That
character.
is so telling because it's so clear he's a product of like Viacom machine, Viacom, MTV,
The original.
Paramount.
The original.
The original, because it's like, what I'm the same age as you. I'm 31 also. And it's like when we were growing up, even though we've discussed before, we weren't really like Jackass fans, but we were aware that it was on TV.
Yeah, I went
We
to see
knew
Jackass.
what was going on.
There's a picture of me and my buddy at Jackass 3D at the premiere, like seeing it when it came out, and it was just something to do. It wasn't like, oh, Jackass, I love it. I'm a skater. You know what I mean? It was just like pop culture at the time. It was just popular. Everybody knew about it.
But like, if you think about like that time, right? Like the early 2000s, it wasn't just the Jackass guys. Like Paris Hilton, Lindsay Lohan, Kim Kardashian, sex tape, like drama is the
fueled
only
everything.
thing
Real
that
World,
got you
right?
airtime.
The Real World, Road Rules, all those shows. Yeah.
All of it. It was just drama equals success.
So
and
he's like, you got to really feed into that character and become what they're trying to make you to be. And then if you do that, then things will turn around. And that was his advice. And lo and behold, we didn't know that podcast was going to like get over 1 million downloads. And I would be, now that video's at like 150,000 views, and everybody couldn't stand me. I'm so fake. I'm this, I'm that. And I'm like, oh shit.
And this podcast was the one that y'all did before the Yonkers show?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And it was just y'all like joking and around and playing
bullshitting around, you know, but it's a huge podcast. It's a very big show. Very big show. And the reason it was so big with Bam is because this kid, Nick Mullen, who runs the show, did an impression about Bam on the show about Jackass being gay. And, you know, and was like, oh, I'm Bam, shove something up my butt. And that got so viral that when they actually got Bam on the show, the fans fucking lost it. And it became this kind of like cult iconic type episode. After those shows happened, the New York show gets canceled. We go back to Bam's castle, and the party's coming up, the April Fool's Castle Bam event. And Bam had told me that the last time they did a party, $5,000 went missing.
Okay. Cash.
Cash. They did cash at the door at the party I wasn't at. I'm not gonna rat Jack out, but it's funny because when they brought me into work on the tour and like I asked him what kind of money they made at events, he's like, dude, I did this party at Bam's house and I made $5,000. And that was so telling to me, you know what I mean? Like I was like, yo, and then they blamed a bunch of girls and other things for taking the money, but it seemed to be Jack at the head of like pointing the finger. And I was like, Jack deserved to get paid because they probably made $50,000 off that party. So if you're a manager, 10%'s $5,000 too, right? So that's your cut. But he was afraid to ask Bam for his money. He was afraid to ask Bam's parents to get paid. So he'd rather steal it and blame some kid. And you know what I mean? And when really you were owed the money. So Jack never felt like he was doing nothing wrong. You know, he felt like he was owed the money. And I kind of would be like, damn, dude, like I feel for the kid and he really needs someone like me to be like, no, dude, pay Jack, you know, like he's doing his job.
Well, you know, I'm going to call you out, Vinny. Because it sounds like you need someone like you to say, pay me. Because you sure didn't negotiate your own damn contract before. You were just flying by the seat of your pants.
Again,
but
though,
what do I know?
Right. And when you're a nobody, you take the chance just to live the story too, to go through it and to have this to tell now. You don't know what's ahead for me yet. You know what I mean?
No, so, you're young.
Right.
And that's the thing. We're like 10 years younger than these people.
Yeah, exactly.
We have 10 more years to go to even be even with their ages.
Exactly.
And like Knoxville, I think we might have 15 or more years.
And I will stress though, you know, because of what Bam's family puts him through, it's difficult for anybody to work with Bam because Jack is one of those guys that his only real flaw was not being able to stand up for himself and not being able to tell Bam, no, you're not drinking tonight. Drink after the show. Do whatever you're a grown man. You want to go have a drink? Do it after the event so that you're not in the public eye. And that's what spiraled all this. You know how many celebrities out there get drunk all the time, but their PR people make them get ready and show up to the red carpet looking fucking decent.
Yeah.
You know, I've been to an Adam Sandler movie premiere and I know for a fact people were doing cocaine all over the place. The entire Hollywood is doing coke that night, you know, and everywhere. And I'm like, okay, but this isn't out there all the time. It's because they're allowing it by trying to control the wrong things and letting the wrong people in and letting the good people out, and trying to dictate instead of letting things just happen the way the cards are supposed to fall. And whatever Bam decides is comfortable for him as well, the people he wants around to help him, that's how shit is going to move forward positively for him. But we're far past that at this point.
Yeah.
The party's coming up, this Castle Bam event. Bam receives a cease and desist order from the township that he cannot have this party there. They already have this $100,000 skate ramp built. They have Yellow Wolf coming in to perform. They have professional skaters coming. This is going to be the most outrageous party ever. Street Bike Tommy from Nitro Circus has a food truck, and they got thousands of people coming. We made a website. I helped Bam make a website called CastleBamEvents.com. CastleBamEvents.com had a website, and his family wouldn't give him any money for the event, so he had to make money on his own. That's why he did the shows with me in the first place, to get some extra cash to pay for flights or whatever they needed for this event. And it was at that point I said, dude, if you don't trust anybody, and I didn't say Jack, if you don't trust anybody, make a website like I do for the shows, and you'll get the cash in your bank account. Well, I don't have a bank account. You don't have a bank account? The money's in some bank that has your name on it and your parents. You don't have your own bank account? Let's go to the bank and get you a bank account. Guess what? Brandon Margera now has his own bank account, right? It became useless.
So you helped Bam Margera set up his first own bank account.
I wouldn't call it his first, but his first, like he had his own bank account that they had nothing to do with, and
that was 2019.
Yeah. So and he only ended up selling 26 tickets ahead of time for this event on this website. It just was too last minute, but they were priced between $100 and $500. So it was a good amount of money, 26 tickets. Again, town in the background is going viral behind our backs. We don't even know this is happening. So Bam, the event falls apart. The police surround his entire property at the castle, squad cars everywhere around the castle. The only person that was allowed from the castle to where Bam was staying on Frank Road was me, because they had shut off all the streets to get fans to come to this event. The biggest problem was people would park on other people's lawns and stuff down the road, 10 miles down the road. There's cars parking on your grass. It was a huge problem for the town. It wasn't even so much. So he's like, okay, I'll put all the cars on my property. They agreed, then took it back. It was this huge power struggle. Finally, the cops are like, we're not letting anybody in. I was at the castle with about 100 people in RVs outside doing all this, like living at this place. And we were trapped there for like a week, quarantined in this castle with the cops around us, like leading up to this. It was the end of March coming into April. April Fool's Day was supposed to be the party. So I went early, and I'm there, and I'm not a part of event planning at this point. I helped him make the website. I have no control of the money. I have no control of anything. The only thing Bam told me was we would be performing our Unfiltered tour together at this event when the bands were done. We would be doing this, and to just go chill at the castle and enjoy myself. I'm playing cards at night with some of the skaters and stuff. I'm eating, I'm enjoying myself, having a good time, getting film, really enjoying the whole Bam, castle experience. And people are starting to look up to me in the ranks around him. I'm telling people what to do to get stuff done, and they're getting it done. And Jack's loving it. His job is so much easier now. He's got an assertive type that's going to get up there and alpha the situation. And a lot of people told me that it reminded them of when Ryan Dunn was around, that he had a friend, and I was starting to become friendly with Bam, that would say, dude, we're not fucking doing this like this. You know what I mean? And let's do it like this, like confident enough to be like, dude, let's just not fuck the fans over right now. But that party they could not do it at the house. I went out and I talked to the cops, and I said, let me find another venue and get all these people out of here and out of your hair. I have to go to Bam's house and back. I have to talk to him. I have to tell him in person what's going on, that we have to move this. Okay. I get a team of fans together in the castle. I set up a table. I said, what I know about event planning is if you're a nobody, you got to make phone calls. Call every venue that you know in the surrounding area that can obtain 1,000, 2,000, 3,000 people, and let's find a place to do this event. Immediately, we found an old decommissioned Navy battleship in New Jersey. This Navy battleship was indestructible. They said that we can do whatever the fuck we wanted on it. Kids could do anything. It is short of spray painting the side of it or skating off the damn ship. That's what they did not want. So we were like, okay, we hired security. Last minute, this is the day of the party. Okay, I'm moving the party to another state. Originally, Bam wanted to move it to FDR Skate Park, which is a famous DIY skate park in Philly. It's the world's biggest DIY skate park under 95 highway, and it's outside. So he's like, we've done 4th of July parties there. We're going to move it there. I said, dude, don't do that. Why? the night before, a Philly cop's son got shot and killed at this skate park. So I'm like, that is not going to fly. I find the ship. They tell me, send me $5,000. I have no money. His parents run his money. The bank account I made for him, the money, it takes a few days to come from the website. So that's not there yet. So I say, Jack, you need to call Phil and say, you want the cops out of our neighborhood? We need the $5,000 to move the event right now. Jack calls him. They okay. Guess what Jack doesn't do? That's what people do.
I need to have you over here in Princeton.
That's what producers do. You know, they just make things happen. So Jack doesn't get the dad's credit card information down. Doesn't take the credit card information down. We that's the only thing I need to secure the venue. So I say, Jack, where's the credit card number? I'll get it. Okay, I go on to doing a million other things that need to be done. Sound needs to show up at the ship in a few hours. The CKY band sound to set up for the concert. We need to move all the merchandise there. We need to move all the people there. We need to get all the crew, the food truck, everything from here to there. We need to set up skate ramps and shit just so people can skate. Like, it's just a whole thing that I was brought in to perform as a comedian and help make a website. Now I'm running the whole goddamn thing.
Yeah.
And I went to Bam's house. I tell him. And it was at that moment I realized that Bam was a little smarter than everybody thinks, because he's like, okay, now I got my scapegoat. I got Vinny to be my scapegoat. So he comes up with this cool phrase. He's like, okay, they don't want to let us have it on land. We'll take it to sea. And he puts me on camera, and I'm happier than shit to be in front of 2 million people.
Yeah.
So I'm like, yeah, look, I'm the guy now, you know? And that was the biggest mistake I ever made. Mostly because at that point I was still just Vinny Beedle. I was still just a guy nobody knew. I was still just a guy that around his area and world was somebody that they trusted enough to make these decisions and make these things happen. And I end up leaving, going back to the house. And that's when I get a call that the cops showed up to the place in New Jersey as well. And they said, in New Jersey, cops got wind of it from the, hey, yeah, by the way, you got 5,000 people coming your way. You know, you might want to get a heads up. They harass the people that run the ship to the point they're like, well, we didn't even get a deposit, so we're going to cancel it. And they're already setting up the stage and sound. So I call Jack and say, hey, excuse my language. That's just how I talk sometimes when I'm mad. Hey, you didn't give me the credit card number. Now where are we going to go? So long story short, in the middle of nowhere, one of the guys that helped build the skate ramp had a friend that owned a brewery. We drive to this brewery in the middle of nowhere. This is all in the same day. Now those rumored 5,000 people that are coming have been dwindled down to about 200 to 500, somewhere in that number. Okay.
Yeah.
200 to 500 people. We go to this brewery. The cops are waiting there. The town cops that are there. Yes, they are. And Jack is trying to talk to them, but he is talking in circles. They are about to cancel the event. And I scream on top of my lungs at Jack right in his face that I will destroy him if he doesn't get the fuck away from me right now, and just saying, you are nobody. You are a loser. You don't fucking stand up for yourself ever. You're not a man. You're managing one of the most famous people in the world, and you can't even tell him what your cut is. Get the fuck out of my face. You know, he walks away. They're like, who are you? I'm a comedian. So I just get him out of there, and I talk to the cops, and they let us do the event. It's a disaster. I'm on stage for 50 minutes bombing. Nikki and everybody.
50 minutes?
50 minutes. It's recorded. I'm on stage for 50 minutes bombing because the people that are there are standing yet again, paid $100 to $500, have traveled 2 states all day long, tired, don't know where they're going to stay that night. And they're in the middle of fucking nowhere. And Vinny Beedle's on stage trying to tell jokes about how they're ugly and their shoes are dirty and shit. It doesn't fucking work, you know? So
No,
Bam, they're telling Bam not to even come on stage and save me. They're telling him, no, just like stay here. He looks, he's sober as a fucking ox. And he was so stressed out from this day. It was the most stressful day of his entire life. He just wanted to have a party with some people and stuff. And now look what it's turned into. And he's seen what I did for him. And I just remember him looking at them and like hitting their hands away from his. And he's like, nah. And he comes on stage and he saved me. And we just talked and brought Zackass, who's in Jackass 4 forever. We brought him on stage, and Bam kicked him in the balls, and we kicked some fans in the balls, slapped him in the face, and told some jokes, and you know, and then I introduced Yellow Wolf, who didn't tell us he wasn't performing. He came out and said there's something wrong with the sound, but you know, it was a fucked up event, and he didn't want to perform, and kind of said it wasn't Bam's fault, but it is Bam's fault, and and just didn't perform. But he did stay and meet everybody, like Bam and Nikki and Yellow Wolf all hung out at the venue. They had an little after thing at the castle because the cops all left at that point. So there only ended up being like 200 people there. We invited most of them back to the castle. And the people that came got their money's worth. there was probably 15 to 20 people of those first 26 that bought tickets and just did not go when they heard it was getting canceled and shit. So the people that bought tickets online just did not go. And there was a few grand owed back from that. The mistake that I made by getting on film publicly was I had booked an entire tour. After the 3 days at the beginning of March, this party happens. The next day, I'm about to leave. I've been at this castle now almost a month. And I said, I got to go home to my wife. You know, she was really ready to throw me the fuck out of the house. I got to go home. So I get in the
Yeah.
car. I get
I
in the
would
car.
probably be the same way. Like, what are you doing?
I get in the car. I pull around the front and I'm about to leave. That night, the night before at the castle party, Bam doesn't know this, but he knows that I fucking had to do what I had to do. But there was probably only about $800 in cash unaccounted for that night. Not the $5,000 that was originally stolen before, but the $800 was from like some ticket sales that were sold at the door. And I was so fucking drained and spent. I mean, I spent $2,000 on alcohol to sell at his house, and it didn't come back to me. I spent $2,000 on a rental car. I was thousands and thousands into debt from trying to help him with all of this without receiving a dollar back. Me and Jack split that money up. That's when I knew Jack took the $5,000 from the first party. I said, "Hey man, what do we got for cash at the door?" He goes, "Well, we got like $3,000." I said, "Give me $2,000." I went and gave it to Nikki. I go, "Here you go. Here's your $2,000 from the door." And she starts questioning shit. And I love her. I don't mean to disrespect his wife, but I'm like, "Bitch, get the fuck out. You ain't gonna fucking question shit. Here, take $2,000. You're lucky this shit even fucking happened. You should be refunding everybody with your stupid trying to throw a fucking party in 3 different places." So then all of a sudden I go back to Jack and I'm like, "You know what? Here, dude, take $300-400. I'm taking the rest. I'm fucking out of here, man." And he's like, "Are you sure? I don't know. They're gonna say something." I said, "Let them come say something, bro. Let them come say something to me." This is when scumbag Vinny's actually like coming out. Now, I have made a lot of mistakes in 10 years in the business. A lot of the mistakes that I made in the comedy business came in the form of bad decision making, trying to get, whether it was whatever it was, investors for shows or comedians paying me to try to book them shows. And I was just doing things at the seat of my pants for 10 years. No one taught me anything about entertainment. I went in at 17, learned when people would fuck me. I started fucking people over. So I had a lot of this like really bad resentment from people in the local Connecticut comedy scene in New England area, that when things started to go bad for me with Bam, everybody started speaking up, like rightfully so, excuse me. You know, they had their qualms with me business wise and they deserve to speak their minds. A lot of those have been resolved now. What I was getting to at that point is that when this party happened, I took the money and my half of the money and left. The next day I'm at the castle and I leave to go home. I had to bring my wife something. I had to give her that 500 and say, "Look, this is why I went," or whatever. She
Yeah.
needed some kind of bill paid to justify what I'm doing, because I came home to a mess. Again, pictures are getting posted of us around girls with their shirts off, and not that anything happened, but she's just questioning, what is he doing there actually? You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Now,
totally.
there was a big party going on there the whole time, but to be honest, I really was just crunching with like a few fans on how to save this event and how to do everything that we can to ensure success for Bam, at least to not have to lose everything, because we weren't sure how many tickets were sold at that point online. Bam, the next day, seen me leaving, said, "Dude, once again, like Detroit, I couldn't have done this without you. You really saved my ass this time." Even Nikki at that point said, "You are the new Jack. You make the decisions." Like they kind of surrendered to that. And I was like, wow, this is great. I felt like, who cares about the money I just lost? Like, I'm the guy now, like this is,
Yeah.
I'm the one that's going to lead the way. And now things can get done my way, which will be the right way. I said, "Bam, you canceled 7 of the first like 10, 11 shows that we were supposed to do. I have all those clubs waiting to have us come and more. Give me the okay to do these events and do them with me. And that's all I ask for." Man to man, face to face, he looked at me and said, "Vinny, I will do anything you put together." Sober as an ox. All these times that we've made business decisions, he was so sober and coherent. I wasn't caring about a contract. I was talking to the man that was not fucked up. I'm not sitting there asking him while he's drunk as a fucking skunk, "Hey
Yeah.
man, you want to go on tour?" Like, we're having these conversations after like I'm saving his ass. He's
Yeah.
giving me another leg and being like, "Yeah, go do what you got to do." So I had spent all my money on this party and he gave me the go. So when you book events, you have the obligation to get a deposit up front. And so I said to myself, now's my chance to get my money back. And I took deposits for 10 shows and maybe made 10 grand, and brought the 10 grand in, knowing we make 5 to 10 grand each event, me and Bam together. So I'm thinking to myself, okay, as long as he shows up to these 10 places, keep in mind, early March, he showed up all 3 places, even though one of them got canceled. That was my fault for not staying, but Jack's fault for letting him do and
So
drink
you're
that night.
saying the deposits were given to Bam.
Mm-mm.
Right, but like it would have been from the venue to you.
To me to produce an event at the venue with the Bam Margera tour. See, I wear more than one hat. I'm not just a comedian. I am the producer of the tour. Meaning if I rent an empty building, I got to set up the chairs, I got to set up the stage, the sound system, I have to promote the event. I have to have somebody there to work the door. I have to have security. I have
So
to do
the
everything it takes, the opening acts, you know.
so
So
the
I have to
venue actually pays the I don't know how it works. That's what I'm
right.
saying. So the venue actually pays the producer of an event to put it on.
So some venues, it depends on your expertise. There are a lot of people who are stupid and don't get paid. They get promised to get paid. I had been through that so much, I don't work on promises anymore. So
Yes,
when I have somebody like Bam Margera, we can go pretty much anywhere we want to go. So it's if they want my show, they're going to throw me a deposit.
I
Now,
see.
they also get a cut of the ticket sales. They get all of the beverage and food sales as well, these venues. So as long as he's showing up, everybody's making thousands of dollars. The
Okay.
only risk is he showing up or not? You know what I mean?
Uh-huh.
That
And
is the
that's
big
why you were so valuable originally because people were like, "Wait, hold on. He might actually show up if Vinny tells him to show up."
yes.
Okay. Got it.
I worked with Artie Lang, like I told you, the comedian before him, who was notorious for canceling theaters, arenas last minute for doing drugs. And this guy showed up to every show I ever brought him to.
Okay.
When people look me in the eye and tell me something, I hold them accountable to that. And if they want me around, usually I'm not there to party with Bam. I don't care about drinking with him. I don't care about doing drugs with him. This is what I care about. So he knew in order to have Vinny around, I kind of have to do it. You know what I mean? Like that kind of sounds bad, but if that's the way it is, but if he wanted me around his personal life at this point, which I didn't know yet. He wanted me around as a friend. And I was getting friendly with him, but at the same time, like it's business for me. So we could cut ties tomorrow and I'm not really going to like care too much, Um,
Mm-hmm.
but not to make too many excuses. There is a lot that goes into it. You have to pay for the website fees as well. I mean, there's a lot that goes into it, producing a show. And so when I seen what they were doing in Detroit and I seen that they made $10,000, the show was run by Live Nation in Detroit. So they got paid 10 grand, but only 2,000 of it was from general ticket sales. I think another $6,000 came from VIP sales. That's meet and greet photo op after the show and merchandise that Bam and Jack sold on their own. So when they made 10 grand that night, we had 400 people there. Even at $20 a ticket, that's $8,000 in ticket sales. Some of those people paid upwards of $100, $150 for better what they thought was going to be seating in Detroit. So there had to be somewhere between $10,000 and $15,000 with the ticket sales for Live Nation that night. When I sat down with Bam in Pennsylvania and discussed doing business with him, my business model was simple. Live Nation has only given you 10 to 15% of general admission ticket sales. You're happy with 10 grand, but you don't realize the cost of your merchandise. You have to sit there and take pictures with these freaks. You got to do all this stuff. It's worth more
Yeah.
than just general admission and money. So if they're giving you 10 to 15% of the money, if you hire me, even if I fucked you over really bad and stuck a up and took 50% of your money, you're getting a pay raise working with me rather than Live Nation. And that is kind of what convinced him to work with me. So if I'm at that point already physically agreed to a number of 50% with Bam, which I never got paid 50%, I have a lot of room to wiggle costs. So if I don't have the cost to run the events and they're going to give me that deposit up front, the venue, which is going to recoup it, the night of the event, then I have that much room on my side to, get them, not put the money out of my own pocket, which
Okay.
this one tour, that was the best way it was structured because after that, I tried to plan another 3 or 4 tours with him over the next few years. And I funded all those myself with my partner and we lost so much money. It got to the point where venues weren't going to give me money no more. They would talk and say, he canceled this one, because that's what Bam did. His family wanted him to go. See, that's the other thing. Before even this dude was in and out of rehabs. He's rehab all over the country for the last 3 years, like everywhere. He went out to Warren right after this happened. And then he canceled my tour and went out there with Warren. I called Bam. I said, dude, you are going to fucking not show up to this shit after you gave me your word you were going to come. And he said, Vinny, I guess Warren is Nikki's brother, and he's been taking him to the beach every day. And there's a shaman out there, and he's teaching him about life, and they're doing the beach workouts. And it wasn't really a rehab, but he was like,
wait a second. Why do you think that's Nikki's brother?
I've spoken to them on the phone, and they told me that. Bam told me that it's her brother.
That the owner of Wavelengths is Nikki Margera's brother.
Why? Warren owns Wavelengths or Wavelengths? Is that what it is?
Well, this is it's one of the mysteries we're trying to
Okay,
decipher.
yeah. So Warren is just a guy I know as Nikki's brother.
Nikki's maiden name is Boyd. Her father's name was Warren Boyd, but he's dead.
That is Warren. Then that is the brother. Then Warren's last name is Boyd.
Her brother also has a social media presence as Warren Boyd.
Yes.
And that's not the same guy. It's a different person. But now you're saying that is Nikki's brother who owns Wavelengths.
Oh, so you're saying there's 2 Warrens?
3.
The dad?
Nikki's dead dad, so he's gone.
The brother.
Nikki's brother, and then this guy that owns Wavelengths Recovery in Huntington Beach.
Either they're hiding that he owned it, and the 2 people are the same, or it's 2 different Warrens. The Warren I'm talking about is the brother, and the brother supposedly saved him that time, and that's why he got the tattoo.
Well, let me tell you this little bit of information. That brother goes all the way back with Lima Yevremovich's business partner. Okay. This guy's name is Albert Minero Jr.
Can you ask me the question?
Yes, if you could say anything to Amanda right now and she could hear you, what would you say?
Amanda.
Okay. He's an actor. He has an IMDb page or whatever.
Is he the fat dude? No.
Yeah, the like mixed
chubby dude with curly hair.
Mm-hmm.
I seen him doing photo shoots with Bam one time. It was weird.
Yes, back with Nikki's brother, and he's a program director for Aura, which is the name of the virtual.
This is Lima's husband. This guy Albert.
No.
Who's Albert?
He's the business partner.
I see.
Lima's husband is not technically associated with this business at all.
Okay.
He's just Lima's husband.
So what I know about Nikki's brother is that they used to butt heads, Bam and him, and that they ended up coming close during this time. But Bam actually told me he was
some type of shaman or something type of thing.
Yeah. And that's when I was going to be having to pay the deposits back once they told me they weren't coming. And I had already spent the damn money on advertising the show and everything. I mean, it was really a mess at that point. So it was at that point I said, okay, I'm going to assume the responsibility to pay it back myself. Okay. I'm going to pay it back myself. My business partner helped me pay it back. One thing that happened that was strange was we had another Connecticut venue booked, and they weren't as much upset about the deposit because there were some people that Bam did get over, and tours after this one, we booked deposits and Bam would get the money and not show up. And then I was kind of asked out for giving it back because he did get the money that time. This is later on. It's strange about this one place in Norwalk was they weren't as much upset about the deposit, but they really wanted Bam to come. And they called Jack. And Jack at that point called Nikki and they said, get rid of this Vinny kid. I don't care what he's done. Do whatever you got to do. Get out of it. Jack ended up telling the venue in Norwalk, Connecticut that I never met Bam. I didn't have nothing to do with him, that I was a fraud trying to book shows and take deposit money to put in my pocket, and that Bam was never agreed to show up. They don't have a contract, just totally fucked me.
Okay.
What Jack didn't realize what he was doing was, Norwalk PD called me. And there's a law. I don't know if it's in every state or everywhere, but you can get arrested for
hello.
Couldn't risk, Yeah, can you hear me?
You just cut out. So I heard you say that the police called you because there's a law where like if you promise a service and you don't do it, and then you kind of cut out.
I just didn't want to risk getting in trouble, with the law at all with this situation. So I just gave the money back. But it was at that point I realized that they were going to do dirty things to try to get me out of this,
Yes.
There was one time when Bam ruined the hotel room in New York City back in early March when I did get to drive to Philly and April and Phil met with me, his parents, and they gave me $5,000 out of the money I paid pre. He left cash there when we got into he. We're missing a part here. Before he went to Warren, after the party, before he went to Warren, he had a breakdown at his house where he was throwing spaghetti all in his car and his dog was eating it. And he was, when we were in New York, I got to tell you this part. When we were in New York City, the night he punched Jack in the face in the comedy club, I left. A friend told me, "You live in Connecticut. Let's take a train back to CT. Fuck them."
Yeah.
I had Bam's computer in my backpack. That computer obtained a film Bam's been working on for 10 years. I didn't know I had Bam's laptop on me. I thought it'd be the last time I ever seen Bam. I go home. I had a little leverage. The next day, I ended up calling Phil and saying, "Where's Bam?" He got taken in like 5150 or something like that. Why? What happened?
When was that?
After the New York City show, West Side Comedy Club, between March 8th and March 10th of 2019. Might have been the 11th or 12th. He was manic for a few days afterwards. Bam, that was the first time Bam started mentioning things to me about and stuff not of this world. He would talk about something called, which in his eyes was like a woman that was a very pretty woman that will suck you in with her looks. And he claimed that Kat Von D was his. She was just like a pretty woman that when he would be in her life, things would go awry for him. And so I would start to learn about what he believed in, by talking to him about things like that. I would let him talk about things like that. But it wasn't until I left that day, I learned the next day that when Bam said, "Go get my Range Rover, Jack," got punched in the face and was really upset and left. And Bam had 2 fans drive him home in his own Range Rover from New York to Pennsylvania. These 2 fans they have footage of the ride where Bam supposedly threw an alcohol bottle and smashed the windshield while they were driving and was trying to choke one of them out while the other one was driving and was like trying to fight them aggressively. And this guy's been trying to use that footage. He tried to get on HBO with it. They denied him. He tried to use it as bait to blackmail Bam. And then as of more recently, I tried to have him come on my podcast and expose him for it. But, we haven't really successfully done that. But he's such a this kid that he would even listen to this and then come on the damn show and show you the footage, I'm sure. But it's still footage that hasn't been seen yet. But it was after that he got home, and it was the that he was doing on that comedy trip. And it was the drinking. And then once you're doing and that much alcohol, if he ran out of, couldn't find it all the time, if the kid that gets it to him wasn't there or whatever, he would then start to take the alcohol, and then he wouldn't sleep. He would go into cycles of drinking, no eating, whatever he's doing, no sleep for days. By day 3, he's hallucinating. That's when demons are coming into his life, And he had gone in the Range Rover with his broken glass from the windshield and the bottle and everything, and he had thrown a bunch of spaghetti all over the place, and eating spaghetti or about the dog. And that's when they sent the cops to his house. There is an audio recording out there of the cops being there during this time. And he was like, "I don't understand what's happening." And they're like, we're taking you in. And more of the same of what the film footage from what you had the previous time was. But they took him in. And that's why when I went to see Phil, I have this famous little line where, Phil doesn't know the difference between and he's like, "Yeah, Bam's a little crazy when he's on the and he gave me the money that I needed to pay for the hotel room and the stuff I lost that time." But the reason I brought that up is the second time when he canceled that 10-show tour, I had called his parents and said, "Look, I need the $15,000 to pay back these deposits. You guys got to give it to me." And they said, "We're not doing any of this shit. Screwed." So that's when at that point I was like, "Oh man," I started talking bad about it online. I got real mad. Bam starts getting wind of the bad shit I'm saying about him. He's getting heat from fans for not giving money back from the castle party. Okay. Big heat from them. Scammer, Viva La Scams, got 300,000 views. All this shit is about it. It's fucking nuts now. So he ends up forgetting that he had a bank account in his own name where that money went. He forgot that I had helped him do that. In Brandon Margera. I cannot get it. Vinny Beedle's not on that account. You can look that up. I believe it was with Wachovia Bank, but I'm not 100%. I remember it might have been Wachovia or a bank similar to that. And he went on Instagram that day and said, Vinny Beedle's a fat loser, blah, 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 blah. He stole the money from the castle party. He stole the money from a venues doing deposits and shit like that. He took it. He took pictures of me back in April after the Castle Band party happened. Me and my family went on a vacation to Disney World Universal because we were just so stressed out. We were over it. We're like, let's just go do something for me and the girls finally. And this is where this whole Disney shit came into play. He posted on Instagram, Vinny's a fat fuck. He wants to steal my money and go meet Mickey Mouse, and all this stuff. And 250,000 people in one day came to my Instagram page, threatening my life, showing me pictures of my mother's house. They're going to kill me if I don't return the money. All this stuff. All of a sudden now I stole the money from the party. I wasn't worried about that because they were saying hundreds of people needed their money back. But the truth is, it was all town fans that were saying that they needed money back, but they were just trolling us. And again, this is when we started to figure out how big the show really was that we were on. These fans were just saying, you owe me 100. And I was like, wait a minute, dude, this guy lives in, Europe. He wasn't here, you know what I mean? Or whatever. And then I looked into, I finally gotten into the website before they shut it down. I printed out at the time a sales report. I don't know if I still have it. And I was like, 26 tickets. Like, what the fuck? I could pay this back if I had to, I was a little bit relieved in that sense. And that's when I realized, Bam's a fucking idiot. But I used what he said. And first I convinced the guys on town to bring me back on saying my life was being ruined. I posted my phone number on Reddit and 15,000 Cumtown fans called me. But everybody calling me wasn't hating me like I thought they were. They were pretending to hate me. They really liked me. They thought I was a scam artist or a swindler promoter or whatever they thought. And I just remember Bam's advice about leaning into things. And I started to joke around with the people who were calling me and trying to transition them into t-shirt sales or just listeners or people that came to shows. And I convinced the guy who runs Town to let me come back on by myself because my life was being ruined by this. As soon as I went on the show, I did the exact opposite and kind of admitted to a bunch of fucked up shit. Even shit I didn't do. Shit I did do in this world, but shit I didn't do. Every time they asked me a question, I answered it in the worst way possible because these videos are online about me being a scammer, enabler, dealer, all this crazy shit. I said to myself, I'm doing things I have nothing to really worry about, to face repercussion wise with any kind of crimes or anything. I'm paying back the deposits for these shows out of my own pocket. So the only thing I owe is my business partner at this point, which is between us, and I can work that off. And I'm thinking in my head, I could really lean into this character and maybe become one of the new side characters to Bam, one of the new Viva La Bam, nutty type guys. And they named me Vinny the Scumbag in that episode. And that episode was titled Scumbag Vinny. That episode of Come Town With Me by myself ended up becoming one of the most popular episodes they've ever had of all time. And even to this day, it plays on a channel on YouTube that will have 500-600 people live, and it'll play every week, that same episode. And that's when my clout was at its highest, and Scumbag Vinny became a thing. Everybody that I ever did do wrong in the business came forward. Everybody with a fake story came forward, and the legend kind of grew into itself. And I started to profit off of it, and it was really fun. I started to make some money back that I had lost with Bam. I had totaled complete losses in ventures, money invested, time, and damage to my career because there are mainstream clubs who see Scumbag Vinny and do not want me there. Just in fact, this week for posting about Bam, I had a TikTok channel with almost 80,000 subscribers or followers and about 10 million views, and they banned me on that website. So my life forever has been affected by it. And me and Bam talked one day when he was agreeing to reconcile things. And at that time, his notion was he was going to be in the Jackass movie.
Yeah.
After this time, though, he had canceled 2 more tours on me that I lost money on. And then he told me that we were going to plan a big finale tour when Jackass comes out. And, it's going to be this big Jackass tour and blah, blah, blah. And that was the last time that I lost money with him. And I totaled about $150,000 in total losses with this guy. And one day we had a conversation and he just said to me, how much money do you think you're owed? And it was him saying at that point, you have no contracts. You've talked to my lawyer who's told you to fuck off. What do you believe you're owed? And I'll get you paid. Again, at this point, when I started working with him in 2019, his net worth was $50 million. So I made him for the cash after seeing what he really owned and how run down the cars were and stuff. I realized not so much. Once he had his downfall in 2019, that went down to 20 million, excuse me, 20 million. So you 30 million in a couple of years or a year. That's a little crazy. He started then going back on the road with Jack doing Comic Cons, and that's when the Dr. Phil shit came into play. He was getting very manic and was talking to me, and I actually came up with the concept of me being a fake Dr. Phil and doing like a YouTube sketch with him. And he's like, "Oh no, I'll just do the real Dr. Phil thing." And so he planned that whole thing, with Dr. Phil. Now, Bam Margera, having posted about me in this Disney thing, I became kind of famous for liking Disney, let's say. So after a while, it was either you go real deep into this character or you have nothing left. You worked 12 years as a comedian and you're left with nothing. So I really went for it. I sold tons of the shirts and performed all over the place as Scumbag Vinny, got some good notoriety and was doing my thing. And then I noticed that mainstream clubs weren't booking me. People were canceling me out. People like Steve-O, me in the tours. It would affect Bam's, tour numbers, would affect Steve-O's tour numbers, and would threaten my career and, all this crazy stuff. And I just kind of like told Bam, yeah, 150 grand is what I would like to see out of this to pay my partner back and come out like kind of whole out of this and not think it. Like I could be okay with moving on and doing whatnot auctions with my wife for the rest of my life and living a good life that's not in comedy. But this was something that was my dream that I actually turned into a career, that he fucked up. In that day, he posted about it on Instagram, which you can still find. And he's like, "I'm so sorry. I didn't know Vinny had a daughter at the time. He didn't know I had a stepdaughter. And I'm going to get better and pay him back." And that day I received a PayPal for like $600 from CKY, and I was like, okay, but I don't know if he just asked his brother, because that's his brother's band, like, "Hey man, this kid Vinny really did get over. Can you send him as much as you could right now? And then I'll talk to mom and dad later about it," or whatnot. Shout out to whatnot. And then, he did that. And then I never started to hear from the money again because Jackass fell apart. Once Jackass fell apart, he had promised me my money and started paying me. Jackass falls apart immediately. And then I say to myself, if he really does look at me as a friend, now is not the time to bail on him when he started paying me. He got kicked off the movie. He was depressed. I actually started making shirts that said, Bam, no Bam without Jackass. And we started selling those. And he goes, "Save the money because we're going to make our own movie." So I'm putting the money together. And so at that point, I'm back down to about, I started counting it. I'm like, okay, he gave me $600. So he owes me $149,400. If he agreed to the amount and started to pay me, well, what the hell? I'm not going to charge him interest. I'm just going to deduct it off what he owes me. So we ended up doing about $1,300 in t-shirt sales. And it wasn't nothing to make a movie, but I was like, all right, let me put this cash to the side for now. Bam's like, "Yeah, just hold it. Just hold it." Then his lawyers were like, "Dude, stop with the t-shirts and everything." And then he's like, "Well, you could sell them on your own if you want." I'm like, "Dude, I've been on the bad side of the shit with you too many times. So I take the shirts down, and I just hold the money there." And I'm like, "Oh, fuck, man. These shirts were selling like hotcakes too. Finally, I can get my goddamn money back, even if it's through t-shirt sales, and he was promoting the shirts and everything and started to look up and going well. And that's when he put me on the phone to make up with Nikki. I don't know why I had to make up with her, but she was mad at me about talking bad about him on the internet and shit, which was, I don't know if she understood the fucking losses I had, but I was mad. And so we apologized to each other. And this is like COVID, and he keeps promising me as soon as COVID's over, I'm finally going to make good. We're going to do Disney. We're going to do the tour. I'm going to do a movie without Jackass and you're going to be in it. It's going to be a Netflix project. And they want me to do a best of CKY series where they play old CKY movies and stuff. And he just kind of commentates over it. Here's the kicker though, with Bam, that may not even be a real thing. When I say producer and stuff like that, it's one of those skater kids that lives in Orlando that he gave all the film to help, the kids editing it and cutting it up and stuff. So Bam could hire his own producer. A producer in Hollywood is just somebody who helps make it happen. I'm a producer. He's a producer. There could be 10 people could get producer credits. If Netflix hasn't announced a Bam project, there's no Bam project yet. Did he talk to people at Netflix? Said, if you can get your shit together, we would be interested in something with you, something like a best of CKY series. And, did that happen? That's more likely than an actual inked up Netflix deal, but I've been positive about it.
Have you seen that like unreleased trailer?
That's of a movie. All right. So when we were in New York and I had to go give Phil the laptop that had the movie in it. That's the movie Bam's been working on for 10 years. It's called, I Need to Now, or they've changed the title 10 times, but it's
It's a
just about,
series.
yeah. Oh, it's a series. Are you
Mm-hmm.
sure?
Well,
Maybe I'm
I'll
looking
show
at the
you
wrong
what
thing.
I mean. Listen, this shit, like you just said,
It's so
someone could have
complex.
edited. My editor could have edited this. Like it's,
Yeah,
I
yeah,
don't
yeah.
know.
Yeah,
But let me.
it could be fan made, or it could be something that they meant to do but didn't do. But if it wasn't a Netflix thing, was it?
It said it was. It said
Ooh.
Bam Margera's new series. Let me find it.
He
Type
hasn't been
thing.
working on any of that.
I'm just gonna show you on my phone the trailer.
Yeah, no, I know the trailer. That was something that is really a pipe dream. I mean, he has better chance of just producing the movie on his own. It's like a 20-hour movie. He has so much film over the last
Like
10
it's
years. Yeah, he might have had a deal with them back then, but anything that was from then, okay, that might have been added in by somebody. He has not, as far as I knew him, this Netflix is very new. So it could be putting it out there. When he was talking to the cops about all the cars he owns and stuff, he doesn't own all that stuff. When you were saying, I watched your video about him listing his assets and stuff like that, he doesn't own a lot of that stuff anymore.
yeah, because
So,
Phil and April sold it.
no, or friends crashed it, or a friend stole it, or Nikki crashed it. I mean, what I'm saying is he listed off those cars. Some of them cars he ain't had for years. So Bam is a liar, and like that's the thing, that he can pick and choose when he says the truth about certain stuff. When it comes to like the Lamborghini, that car was so run down and beat up, it needed to go. That's one of those things I can agree with, that it was kind of just losing value every
I
day.
can't agree with someone's mom selling shit out from under them without their permission. Because if my mom did that, I would call the police.
Right. Bam, though, has given his parents control of his money for the last 30 years, so there's really not much room for me to argue that stuff now.
Maybe not you. I'm not asking you to argue
No,
it. That's
and
just
if
my
it's
opinion.
illegal, then that's a different story, but that is something like, you know, more recently, Bam had compared me to his dad in a way, saying like, when I would say stuff and I would make up lies about you spending the money at Disney, I would say to myself, well, all Vinny likes is pizza in Disney World. How much could he steal from me? He would compare me that way, saying I was kind of safe. You know what I mean? I'm not going to take and squander his money if he decides to work with me and that's why he can trust working with me in a money capacity. He believes truthfully that that I was very new to the production side of things, that I took deposits because I didn't know what I was doing, who takes deposits, and he doesn't want to take any responsibility for all the shit that happened previously. And so that's something that sometimes I let him think whatever he wants to think. He might truly believe that I am scumbag Vinny, you know what I mean? But I sort of kind of look at him as this mad genius in the reality world and just say it's all one anyway. So whoever I am in front of him, or whoever I say I am, is who I'm going to be to him, and
Yeah.
that's what's going to grow, the legend. So I do have to pick and choose. Either I want to be a character in his world and got to take what comes with it, or I got fucked out of all this money and blah, blah, blah. But
Yeah.
I took investments from a business partner of mine who was a business partner in all my ventures, and so he this is something we lost in, and it's more like, if we can recoup the money from a guy who has it and knows he fucked us over by not showing up continuously when he promised to, then we can recover that money. And now that he settled a jackass lawsuit, which I know he denied $5 million, I know he wanted 15, which in all sense of the word means you're going to meet in the middle. I know for a fact that he turned down 5 million. I know he wanted 15 million.
Yeah,
And
that's what
so,
he said in the body cam footage too.
right. So when he denied 5 million, and I called him a fucking moron because I'm owed 100 grand. Of course I want you know what I mean? Of course I want him to get paid. And so I'm thinking to myself, if he at least gets this money as his nest egg for his kid, or I don't know, there's got to be a way for me to make the money back. He ended up telling me to keep the t-shirt money too. I forgot about that $1,300. Like, oh, keep that. So that was the second payment. And then I'm like, okay, now I don't have to save that money. I can keep the t-shirt money. And, he's telling me to, put that toward what he owes me. And so here we are now at $148,000 roughly. And so I'm seeing it kind of come down piece by piece. So even if he said, Vinny, here's 20 grand, I sold my house. Here's 5 grand, I sold my Lamborghini. Here, he holds his friends to the same accountability when they crash a car. He would tell somebody like Novak, I don't care if you give me $50 a week for the rest of your life. As long as you pay me back, we're friends, I can move on from it. And so that is kind of where he would feel like, okay, I don't have to give any 150 grand, but I can start paying him. And so he did. And I didn't ask him for any more money. Once he got into the rehabs and everything, I knew when he was in Phoenix, when he was in San Diego. So before he was in Phoenix, San Diego, and this is 21, and Danny Duncan links up kid from YouTube. When Danny Duncan links up with him, like I told you, they were letting him drink all he wanted and stuff. They were filming. When they got to the night, he told them, there's this kid, Vinny, who lives in Florida that I would just love to prank. I would love to prank this kid. Let's fly to your house. Now, Danny Duncan owns a house 2 hours from me. So they invited me there. They pranked me on camera, throwing cakes at me, throwing punches at me. First time I seen Bam in 2 years was that moment. And we hugged afterwards. And
This is 2021.
2021. Yep. And, you know, we hugged afterwards and we talked a lot and we talked about everything that happened and just real big brother moment. He was real fucked up, but he's like, you don't get how funny he is. And he like made me do stand up in front of through this people's room and they're all laughing at me. And, you know, these are people who could help me get notoriety. I asked him, hey, can you put me in the film? You know, I had my shirt on. So people started recognizing me everywhere I went. I mean, just from one video on YouTube, I'd be in a gas station and young kids are coming up to me. Oh my God, Scumbag Vinny. I started wearing the shirt everywhere just so people would recognize me. And I was like, okay, maybe there is something to this. Maybe there is something to being friends with this guy, you know? And I just, at this point, it sounds kind of pathetic, but I started to make plans for another business on the side because I said to myself, I don't want to go backwards in the comedy business. I would much rather start another venture, make money that way. And then when I start to transition myself back into this, it'll just be through podcasting and doing stand-up on stage. And that way, if I ever end up back with Bam again, I didn't run into any more financial bad situations in the comedy business, which didn't turn out to be true. I ended up touring with another kid that I helped get TikTok famous, and that didn't go very well, but that's for another day. So I didn't learn my lesson too much, but I was also stopped working with people who were addicted to anything. This kid that I was working with wasn't addicted to anything except being an asshole, you know? So that was really, after that, I said, I'm done producing tours, and I started another business with my wife, and that's what we've been doing. But the door is not closed for me in the comedy business, in the entertainment business. Bam's wanted me in this movie as more of a comedic role, not something where I'm going to be doing stunts to hurt myself. And, you know, whatever the situation is, there is a little bit of hope there. And I would be totally hopeless as far as the money was concerned if he didn't start paying me back himself. Between people like Steve-O, Brandon Novak, his mother, his wife, and people very, very close to him, they have shut me out of his life a dozen times over the last 3 years, deleted my number out of his phones, doing whatever it is to get me out of his life. And somehow he always finds his way back to me. And I know it's because now, after we talked, when he left Tranquil Shores and went to Orlando, I said to him that night, I was like, you know what you did with me, right? Like, you know what you did bad, but you also know what you did good. Like, you've given me a lot of notoriety and things I never had. And he's like, yeah, duh, you idiot. You know? And I'm like, so how does this end for me? You know, if things don't go the way that you plan them and this movie doesn't happen with Netflix or series, or you're never able to get control of yourself again to the point where you can pay me back or tour with me or help me in any way, where does this end for me? And he's like, tomorrow we're going to go to Disney World. Nikki wasn't invited at this point. He had been planning a trip with the skateboard's mother, who loves Disney. He's seen it all over her house, and he said, my fat friend Vinny loves Disney. I never let my son meet Mickey Mouse yet. I would love to go to Disney. At this point, even he went to Tranquil Shores, he was spending a lot of time with Missy in Florida, Sarasota. He was spotted a lot in Sarasota. When he was with Danny Duncan, I'm saying. So when Danny Duncan and his crew would get a little too heavy for him, that's when he first started going to Missy, because she was in Florida already. And he would say to them, oh, don't worry about it. You don't want me around. I got Missy here. So that's when Missy kind of came into play, was 2021 during that Danny Duncan, run, when he's doing the stunts with Danny and that kind of thing. So I remember having to contact Missy to make sure that she got tickets for Bam to go to Disney. So Bam had the money. and the skateboards people's mother had, she gets her own passes, and Bam bought 10 tickets to Disney World, and these were like VIP passes that Bam spent the money on. And I said to him personally 5 times, "Are you sure you have a reservation? I'm a season pass holder." I said, I moved down to Disney. I played so much in the damn character. People, donating money, move Vinny to Disney. I made sure to move Vinny to Disney, and they paid for us to move here. And I bought passes. So I'm like, I know Disney, dude. You need a reservation during COVID to get in the park. Are you sure you have that? Because I don't want you to think you're going and then blow up at the gate. And I ain't getting banned from the place because you made me this idiot. And now this is the only money I can make is when I'm telling people I'm going and shit like that. So
Right.
I like it. My daughter likes it. My wife, I'm not going to hear
Yeah,
that
it's
Bam
fun.
ruined another thing. I'm not going to hear Bam ruined another thing, especially something they like. I ain't going to hear that. And that's what
Yeah.
I tell him. And he goes, "Dude, I'm telling you, she sent me the reservation." He showed me the reservation. So I know he spent the money on the tickets. And I know at that point, Missy was not involved in the setup just yet. Okay. She was pressured at the last minute. While this is going on, I was under the impression the whole time through Bam's manager that he was in a conservatorship already. I was
He
told at
was.
that time it was Missy. Let me just tell you. I was told it was his aunt Missy, who I believe to be not his aunt at all. Okay. That's just what I believe from things I've heard and who the fuck she really is.
Why do you think that? Who do you think
Somebody
she
told
is?
me that she's just like a friend of the family or something like. But Missy, I don't think she's on that side of the family. I could be wrong about that. I'm gonna go ahead and confidently say she's not his real aunt. I even remember asking him, "Is this your real aunt?" And he was like, "Yeah, kind of through this way." And I'm like, "That isn't an aunt, bro. That's like a lady, you know."
So she's like a family friend type of
That's
thing.
what I think. And but would probably let Bam drink. Maybe not do drugs. I don't think he was on drugs anymore. I think he finally shook. All that crazy shit stopped happening. 2019 was the year of the meth monster.
So you
COVID got him off drugs. I think Warren Boyd and whoever they were out, that I wasn't out in California, but I believe that team got him off of meth, and they were happy enough with that. Bam is such an alcoholic. He would have even stuff at his house called emergency alcohol. So where he would freak out, he needed the emergency alcohol, he would call it. And sometimes Nikki would dump it down the drain. He'd freak out and go to the bar all day. And that happened a few times, So I would be witnessing that and being like, "Oh, damn, this is." A lot of people that are on Adderall can't get means, but when you're a famous person, any kind of drug that you want is around. And that's the
Yeah.
thing. And what may or may not come out later about who exactly put in his hands is a different story, but that was something Steve-O really blamed me for, because his theory was me having Bam at these events where fams can give him methamphetamine is killing him. He used to tell me I'm putting a spoon in Bam's mouth, but what I understood later on is that it was somebody very, very close to Bam that was getting him high on.
See.
So that to me was
So
like,
I want to talk about that. Let me take a 1 minute breather. I'm gonna run to the restroom, grab
do
some
you want
water,
to
and
do
I'll be
like,
right back.
that
And this
sounds
will be
good.
the good time to start. I think this is a good next part to start on, because you were talking about Bam starting to do math, which was a big difference, right? Some of this will have to be creatively
I
edited,
actually like
but
how this kind of ended but I know it was somebody really close to him, and so
yeah,
whether it
I
was
think really good backstory, and like we'll answer a lot of questions that people
in this
have of like,
the next one.
who are you? Why do I care about what you have to say? Whatever, whatever. And then the next stuff is gonna be like receipts and like here's what you definitely know about like
What's
the
going on?
setup and the family and the Lima and the all the things. So
Yeah.